Welcome to the Heart-Led Business Show, where compassion meets commerce and leaders lead with love. Join your host, Tom Jacobs, as he delves into the insightful conversations with visionary business leaders who defy the status quo, putting humanity first and profit second. From heartfelt strategies to inspiring stories, this podcast is your compass in the world of conscious capitalism. So buckle up and let your heart guide your business journey.
Ladies and gentlemen, gather around as we give a rousing round of applause for the fitness maestro himself, Eric Degati. With over 25 years of heart, hustle, and healthy living, Eric has made waves from the Navy SEALs to Olympic champs, blending passion and performance in every program he designs. Today, we're diving into his journey of building a heart-led business, all while keeping the spirit of competition alive and injury-free. So lace up your metaphorical trainers and get ready to be inspired. Let's give a warm welcome to Eric Degati on the Heart-Led Business Show. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tom. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited too. It seems like I'm on a streak now with a bunch of fitness pros, and that really warms my heart because I came out of the fitness industry as well. So I always love to geek out on this. And I'm really excited to kind of get your journey as well, because it's very unique as well. So I'm really excited for this conversation. But of course, the first question I always like to ask is, what's your definition of a heart-led business?
So I gave this one some thought, and what keeps coming to mind is there's a great documentary, if no one's ever seen it. HBO originally put it out. It's called The Defiant Ones, and it's this unlikely story of the matching up of Jimmy Iovine, world famous music producer who produced everybody from Bruce Springsteen to Tom Petty and so forth, and Dr. Dre, and how they came together, and they eventually created the company that they sold to Apple as Beats. And very cool story of how they both came up through. And there's a line that Jimmy talks about in there, and they ask him like his keys to success. And he said, be of service. And that rings out in my head, and understanding that in what we do, whether it's in fitness, performance, strength and conditioning, or even a whole bunch of other realms, and in what he looked at his careers to be of service. Very similar in that if I'm working with an NFL team, it's not about me, it's about the players that are on the field. And just like Jimmy, he's in the studio, no one's ever seeing him. What they're seeing and hearing is a star that's going to be on the stage or on the album. And so understanding to be of service, to make other people better, allows us to be successful in what we do.
I love that. That's one of the best definitions I think I've heard in a very long time, of just being in service. And that can be any industry as well, and any service. I love that. That's very heart-led.
Yeah. And so I take probably just as much learning from other industries and taking and applying to what we do. If I'm reading two books simultaneously, one is always the technical and how do I teach you better things of how to maximize physically, but then learning how to problem solve, which essentially what, my job and what most jobs are, learning how to problem solve and learning how to problem solve from other industries. So I just finished Dan Heath's book, Reset, talks about how they problem solve in all these different scenarios and how to create systems and how to do that. Basically taking from that, and then how do I apply that to what I do each day, is probably the best thing that I've ever done for myself professionally, is continue to learn from people who are not in my field, but they really good at problem solving. And then how do I take that and apply to what I do?
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's like skill stacking to create that really unique and broad range of knowledge. Yeah, that's great. So tell us a little bit about your business and what makes it heart-led.
It's about people, and basically people come to me, and like I said, they're coming to me to solve a problem. And so luckily I was smart enough to know early on, even when I didn't know anything, that it wasn't about teaching you exercises or signing reps and sets. And that was the means to the end. That wasn't the end. Ultimately, what you're coming in for is your why. Okay. And then me being curious enough, thankfully, that I would do what a lot of people in service don't do. And I talk about this when we coach other coaches and trainers and clinicians, is ask the second question. Tom, when's the last time your doctor asked a second question?
Never.
Right. So it's always the first question. If they get to the first question, you're lucky, and then they're not even, and they've actually done research where they've looked at physical therapists, and they said the amount of time that they spent listening to their clients patients on intake was less than a handful of minutes, if that. And I need you to be heard. And so to do that, I have to ask the second question, because the first question doesn't get to the real reason you're here. You're not really here to lose the 5 pounds or to put the 10 pounds on your bench press. That represents something deeper. And so it means you want to do something about, and ultimately what a lot of it ties back to is identity. And you want to change either you need to fortify your identity or you need to change your identity. And you're not getting to that in the first question. And so being able to ask that second, that third question, why? What does that represent? What can you do? What does life look like for you when that happens, or when you are that 5 pounds lighter? And then you start to get to the real reasons. And that's really the problem that I have to solve. And then it also paves the path for us. So now if you're my client, Tom, I can say, okay, listen, if you want to get to here, or you want to be able to have that freedom, that you want to be able to run up the stairs and not get out of breath, or you want to be able to play a round of golf without having to take fistfuls of Advil, this is what we're going to have to do. And so it allows them to see the picture. It's not do 5 of these because I said they're good, because that's arbitrary.
Yeah, exactly. And that mirrors almost exactly like my whole sales philosophy and methodology. I call it the what, why method, of just finding out what the problem is. And the first what is always, what's your goal? What do you want to accomplish? Which is kind of that surface level. But then the next question, the why is that important to you, is so important to ask, because you get that motivation. And whether you're trying to sell something or motivate somebody to do something with exercise, what have you, knowing what their why is helps both of you. Because now I imagine that you have a client that might be struggling in month 3, month 4. You just bring them back to that why, and it's like a snap of the finger and they're back at it.
Yeah. And also because I want to be transparent and say, look, it may even be very simple what we need to do, but it's not going to be easy. And there's going to be days that you're not going to want to do this. And we want to get that. And there's going to be some things that are going to get in your way. So what are going to be those hurdles? Let's look at them now. And let's have a strategy for when those hurdles come up, and understand what the expectation is, and understand that you don't need to be perfect to get to where you need to go. And having that understanding where it's not going to be easy, but you're also going to have that balance of pushing them, but also allowing them to give themselves some grace, that it's not going to be perfect all the time. You're not going to feel like getting up every time and doing this. You're not going to have the greatest workout in the world every time you walk in the door. You're not going to eat perfectly every time. But if we consistently stack, as you said, enough good habits, that you're going to be a different person in a couple months and in a couple of years.
I think with Atomic Habits was one book that we always had our training clients read when they came into my fitness center. And that just the little things that you do that get you to get that habit, to get that person to really ingrain it into your body as well, makes a huge difference, rather than I see the guys at the gym now, the trainers at the gym here, and they're just counting reps. It's like 1, 2, like that doesn't do anything for anybody, unfortunately. So tell me a little bit about your journey to get to where you are, because I'm sure it hasn't been rainbows and butterflies the entire time of your career. So where did you start, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, no, I didn't decide, I want to get into fitness, and then an NFL team called me the next day. So it started out saying, hey, I'd like to get into fitness. And there was 2 back of my mind motivators that were there. One was I had some really bad back pain in my early 20s, was sleeping on the floor for probably a good 3 months, just because I'm incredibly stubborn. And finally, my mom said, you got to go get this looked at. So I went, not knowing any better. I just went to my general practitioner, waited in the office for probably a good 2+ hours to wait, sitting on the tissue paper for another hour for him to walk in and kind of poke around at my back and look kind of clueless. And he said to me, it could be anything. Could be slip disc, pinched nerve, could be anything. I go, really? I waited for all this for that. I said, my mom works in a gift shop. She could have guessed that. I said, so I went to the gym and I looked at every exercise that said back and I just did it. And my back felt better. And so I'm like, okay, I want to learn more about this stuff. So I'm not just aimlessly going at it. And as I started to learn and get more inquisitive about it, because I'd always worked out just with sports and things growing up, I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. And so that kind of led me on a journey to not just being more fitness driven. Yeah, I was competed in bodybuilding, and I was the meathead, and I was the guy who worked out for football and baseball. But I got more inquisitive about can I heal myself? And the other thing in the back of my mind is my grandmother, she had four major knee surgeries, 2 replacements. She didn't
Oof.
play. She didn't get checked into the boards in an ice hockey game. Wasn't a mogul skier. She wasn't any of those things. But she got to the point where she had a morphine pump inside her stomach because there's just so much pain. And I thought, like, if someone along the way had just got her and just helped her out and like, just, hey, look, you need a little more mobility, you need a little more strength, and you don't have to have these knee pains, her life would have been vastly different. And I think about that and I said, okay, how do I have the ability to have this power to change people's lives and not have that when they get to that fork in the road, that it's not a scalpel, that it's just a couple exercises and things that they can empower themselves to change. And that kind of led me to want learning more and more. Started off as a trainer in just a big box gym, like a lot of people did. I was one of 18 sharks swimming in the same small waters looking for clients. And so how am I going to differentiate myself? Well, I was the guy that this is going back 27 years almost. We had these corrugated boxes at the front desk that, if you remember, we used to have where you'd fill out a form. If you want to win a free personal training session, fill it out and you drop it in the box. I'd get there at 5 a.m. every morning and I'd empty the box and I'd wait till 9:01 and I called everybody and congratulations, you won. When can you come in for your appointment? And thankfully, enough of those people liked what I had to say. And they said, how do I sign up for more of this? And that's how I built my clientele from scratch. And then from there, outgrew that and eventually ventured off and rented space into a facility that I eventually took over, opened up my own facility back in 2001. Had that and grew that to where we grew to over 10,000 square feet, 10 trainers. We had multidisciplinary things with physical therapy and chiropractic care and performance training and group fitness classes and all these things going on. And as that was all happening, I also got into fitness education because the mentors who taught me did so much for me. I looked at them on the stage and I wanted to be the guy teaching the workshop. And so got involved in doing some of that and teaching for a company called Functional Movement Systems back from their inception, became a lead instructor. That grew to where I was teaching all over the world and then started to teach some of my own content. And so I had these kind of dual paths of education as well as being the practitioner and the consultant. I got to a point where I was getting more work performance, working with high school teams, college teams, eventually got a call from the local NFL team, started working with them, worked with them for 9 years. It got to be a point where it was just too much. So I got rid of the facility and then just stuck with the training and consulting, which I still do. And then as well as the trainer education.
Wow, what very, very similar kind of pathway in terms of the drop the box and that I did at the big box gym as well. I did fat assessment, so I did the whole calipers, and that was usually pretty good to get clients. Oh yeah, you're obese on this scale. We need to work out now, and that's always fun. So, how great of a day was it when you sold your fitness business, the brick and mortar?
It's in some ways, I joke that it's like owning a boat. The best days are the day you get it and the day you get rid of it. But now looking back, I'm very proud of what we did there in that one, like back in early 2000s and late 90s when I started, and I had this vision of this multidisciplinary center of where you would have all these things and these professionals working together and have a system to where if you came in, okay, Tom, he's coming in for a fitness program, but we noticed something that he has pain in this movement. So let me walk you over to the chiropractor's office and she's going to be able to work with you on this, or the physical therapist could work. And that didn't happen back then. Now it's common. Now it's commonplace. But back then people thought I was crazy. And so I was pulling people in to try to say, look, this is what it could be. And so we were way ahead of the curve with that. And so looking back, that was something that I was grateful for in terms of that experience. The other thing I look back on now is fast forwarding. I have a lot of good friends who now what's changed in fitness education, especially since after the pandemic, is a need that has always been there, but what nobody really was serving was fitness people were really passionate about fitness, but they didn't really know a lot about business. And I was one of them. I had no idea how to manage people and do all the business side of things. That was always a struggle for me owning the facility. Now there's some people that do some incredible business mentorships that now I have friends that do these and I'll sit in and listen to their workshops. And where was this when I needed it 20 years ago? If I had this, I'd probably still have that facility, quite frankly. But that's where I look at the brick and mortar is it was a lot of me going out on a limb and taking a lot of chances and doing a lot of things that people weren't doing to try to stand out. And had I known then what I know now, I'd probably still have it. But I look back with no regrets in terms of what I did there.
Yeah, that's great. Having a mentor in business, I think, is so important, no matter what the business is. And the same for me. Like when I opened up my fitness business in 2008, height of the housing crisis, which was a really great time to open a new business. I almost went broke in 6 months, but it was because I got that, excuse me, the sales training that enabled, and from a fitness consulting company, that I was able to save that business and continue on and sold it 10 years later. But the business side, especially for that heart-led entrepreneur, is really the biggest struggle. Because you're talking about your passion and trying to be forward and serving people, but you can't do that if you're not making profit. So how did you manage that then in terms of making sure that you got the business education or had people around you that could help you with that business?
So a couple things. One is for myself, I always had a very clear vision of who we wanted to be and the brand we wanted to have for ourselves. And that I want to be able to put my head on the pillow and at the end of the night and know that whatever legacy I'm going to leave. And when people talk about what I do in our facility or working with me, that it has certain criteria to that. And so there have been opportunities along the way that I turned down that could have been better profit centers, quite frankly. And then even on the individual level, there's been plenty of clients that I've had. I had 2 referrals in the last week, as a matter of fact, that I sent to other places. I said, you're not the right fit for what I do. And the reason for that is because could I have put the square peg in the round hole and just taken on that client and made a couple extra $100? Sure. But what's that going to do when someone says, oh, you worked with Eric. How was that experience? Oh, I tried it. It was all right. It didn't really work out for me. I'd rather not have those walking around. I want to let you know, and I have a phone call with someone today who wants to send his son into me for some performance training. And I said, I'm not going to see him until we have a conversation to let you know transparently, this is what the expectation is going to be. This is how it works. This is how my program runs as opposed to other programs that may be available to your son. And I'm going to tell you, quite frankly, having had sons that went through this as young athletes, they may not be the right fit for me. And if they're not, then I'll give you some suggestions of where to go. And I want to make sure that this is something that you understand what you're getting into and what the expectations are, because I don't want to waste anybody's time, effort, or money here. And I'm very at peace that if you say that's not what I'm looking for, then fine. And I'm not trying to sell you. I got out of the convincing business a long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, that's really going back to your core value of serving people and being of service to others, that you don't want to give them a false hope or give them something that might be mediocre at best.
And there's also things that aren't in my wheelhouse. There's certain things that I'm really good at that I'll go up against anybody in the world with. And then there's other things that are not my thing. So there's certain clients that I'm not the right fit for. And so that's where I want to get you with someone who is. If you're someone that needs someone to get you to work out, I'm not your guy. Right? There's people who are better motivators than me. If you're someone that, look, I'm already working out, I just don't know what to do, I'm a really good problem solver and I can get you your program dialed in. So I'm perfect for you there. So even when I was working much more in performance, if someone came to me and they had certain goals and certain sports that they're working with, I was perfect for them. But if they said, oh, I want to get ready for the NFL Combine, I'll say, look, I can help you a little bit. And I've helped people for that. But I have a guy that I know, that's right down the road that is better than anybody in the world at this. I'd rather have you go to him.
That takes a lot of integrity as well, especially if you're in a new business and you're maybe struggling with cash flow, to be very certain, just to have that integrity, like I said, to turn down potential clients. Have there been times where it's been a real struggle? Like maybe early on in the business?
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't even just early on. There's been multiple steps along the way. There's never that and that's one of the things I've learned, the wisdom that you gain over time is that you always think there's that thing. Oh, now I'm working for an NFL team. That's going to be the thing where it's all going to be paved in gold from here on in. And it's not. It's not. It helps. It certainly helps. It's certainly seminal in terms of your journey, but it's never one thing that your problems are all going to go away. And yeah, what you have to understand is the short-term gain worth the long-term risk. And so again, you're only as good as your reputation. I am selling you me, and the business of me depends on that reputation. And if I have a lot of walking business cards out there that are not stellar, then there's only so long I'm going to last. And that's where I was going to say the irony of our industry is that now what's happened is that you have tons of business mentors. Everybody's gotten into business mentorship. I'm telling you, if you're a fitness professional, I get probably one direct message a day saying, oh, I could fill your book with 25 leads a week and this whole thing. Meanwhile, the kid's 19. But now what's happened is people have forgotten that you actually need to be good. And so that's where we've pivoted. And my fitness education is, and we do a mentorship on that side to say, okay, look, even if that kid is right and he can get you 25 leads, if they all show up tomorrow to you, that's going to be the worst thing that ever happened to your business because you stink, right? You're not good. And so now everybody in town's going to know you're not good. And now you're done. And so maybe the worst thing in the world for you is to get 25 leads right now because you don't know what to do with them. And so what we try to look at is, and the other model I look at that ties into what you're talking about, that's heart-led, is that we teach the people that go through our fitness education program and our mentorship is we teach them how to try to build what we call forever clients. A forever client is someone that, like the clients that I have, clients that I've had for literally 20 plus years. And they were there when my kids were born. My kids are now both out of college. And so they've been through that journey. And it's not because I give the greatest workout programs, because a lot of them probably are doing a lot of the same exercise they've been doing for most of those 20 years. It's because there's a trust there. There's a bond there. And you don't always know what's behind that door if you're going to go in and work with a coach, a trainer, a clinician, a physical therapist. And so to be able to build that trust that not only are they going to be here forever, if you look at that from a business standpoint, if you got 25 leads and then you have them for a 3-month summer challenge and then they all go away, now you got to get 25 more leads and there's a cost to that. And if you look at that cost amortized over time, I make way more money than you because I don't have to keep filling that bucket all the time. Because not only do my clients never leave, but also they bring more people into the tent as opposed to me having to go out and chase them.
Yeah, exactly. Looking at the lifetime value of a client. And that was the same in my fitness business. I had multiple clients that were still training after I sold the business. They'd been with me the entire time. And I kid them. I was like, oh, thanks for buying my car. The value of that client for 10 years is incredible. And if you're, like you said, if you have that leaky bucket and you're just having to refill all the time, you're spending so much more money on marketing when you could just be living off of referrals and recommendations from your current clients.
100%. And there's also a comfortability and familiarity with that when you're walking in and knowing, okay, I know who I'm seeing this morning. And if I'm not having the greatest day, they're going to have some grace with me that I don't have to be on because I'm constantly trying to sell you to show up for the next session.
Yeah, exactly. So what piece of advice might you offer to somebody that has that business, that heart-led business, really wants to really go for it, but is struggling on the business side? What piece of advice would you give them?
You alluded to it earlier. You need to find the right mentor and someone that's actually done it. Now, one of the things that we joke about with a lot of these fitness business mentors that are out there is they're basically failed personal trainers. Whereas you need somebody who's actually doing it, who's in it. Like we say with our mentorship in terms of how we're teaching you how to be one of the best coaches or trainers or clinicians in the world, is we can confidently say that because we're still doing it. We're in the trenches doing it. We've trained. I can't count how many tens of thousands of sessions I've done. I'm still doing it. I'm still improving. I'm still learning. And so I'm actually done it. I have the track record and I continue to do it. So I understand what you're going through. So you need to find somebody who's whatever field you're in or whatever industry you're in, you need to find whoever it is that has had success in that, because success leaves clues, and follow their blueprint. Instead of doing what I did, which is taking 25 years of basically screwing up to learn from it, is save yourself that trouble. It'll save you in the long run. Whatever you invest in that is still a savings if someone can save you the trouble of having to make all those mistakes.
100%, because if you learn from somebody else's mistakes, obviously you don't have to make the same mistake and the same cost. I keep kicking myself when I should have had the business mentor before opening up the facilities so that I was very well prepared going into it, because I had no idea how to run a small business, even though I'd managed millions of dollars in budget for a oil and gas company. It's completely different. And having that guide that knows all the pitfalls saves so much time and money. It's incredible. That's great advice.
And also somebody who knows specifically what you're looking for, because you could have someone I had people early on that were brilliant business people, but they didn't understand the dynamics of, okay, your biggest expense in the fitness industry, an example, is your staffing. Okay, how much do you pay your coaches and trainers? I realized after the fact, I way overpaid for what I had. And so not understanding, okay, how do you get good people and pay them well and take care of them so they stay with you, but not overpay them for services that they're not providing or talent that they don't have. And so you only know that if you have somebody who's done that. And it doesn't equate to, okay, my client who has an insanely successful trucking business, it's not the same as hiring a bunch of guys to drive dump trucks. And knowing somebody who knows the ins and outs of, okay, and also understands the ebb and flow of, hey, look, in August, no one's going to be here. And you got to be prepared for that, because your rent's going to be exactly the same. And knowing and understanding, being able to forecast for that, knowing and understanding that, hey, know that trainer who's your best trainer, who's kicking butt, they're probably going to leave if they get really successful. And so you have to be ready for that, and how you're going to handle that, and what are your systems in place for that. And so that's why getting somebody who's done this before and walked the path for you makes it a whole lot easier than trying to hack your way through and create the path yourself.
So true. I remember one of the first jobs that I had it was a high-end club. They paid a percentage that was like 80% of the session rate came to the trainer. I'm like, and I was doing the math. I was like, but what you pay in tax is more than they were losing money on every session that was being done. I was like, who is in charge of this? Of course, I didn't tell anybody because I enjoyed that 80% of the, but you can't make any money doing that. And it's having somebody that, and this was a corporation, so they're not even looking at the numbers really, but having a mentor that's been there, done that, can say, you know what? It needs to be a lot less than that so that you can actually make a profit. Yeah, it's crazy. It was a crazy club, actually. So, cool. Eric, this has been just a fascinating conversation, and you've taken me down some memory lanes, and I appreciate that. I know our audience appreciates your wise advice. Well, how can people learn more about what you do and to get in contact with you?
Okay, so the main hub where you can find me is just my website, which is just my name. It's Eric Dagati, EricDagati.com. And there it directs you to wherever you should be. I have all my social media on there. There's a thing on there, since I do a lot of public speaking and things like this, where I have an Ask Eric thing on the main page. So if you had a question about training or any of those things, drop it to me. That'll go to my email. But then there's kind of two journeys you could go on. If you're looking for training and coaching, that'll send you to Eterno Athletics and what I do with that. And a lot of my focus with my coaching and training most of it has moved online virtually. I have a pretty outstanding app that I'm able to deliver what I was able to deliver in person now virtually, so I can work with people all over the world. And my focus has gotten more from athletes, where I've got the cool jerseys behind me and the stories and all that stuff to tell, where now moving a little bit more towards training me. And what is me is the guy who's over 40, who wants to live forever and kick some ass and is not ready to go to a rocking chair anytime soon. And so I'm dealing with specializing in guys over 40 who are ultra competitive, still want to be able to do those things. That's on the coaching side. But for the professionals and more of your audience, I have a partner, Mike Perry, who's another brilliant coach up in the Boston area, who we created something called Principles of Program Design. Now, when people hear that, they think, oh, we teach you reps and sets and so forth. That's the part of it. But we teach you how to bring somebody through the client journey, from what should you even be thinking before you even think about taking on a client, to, okay, how do you connect with a client when they walk in the door? What testing should you do to gain the most information? What are you going to do with that information? How do you then start to build the program? How do you build it around them holistically, taking in all the factors of their lifestyle? And then how do you adjust that program when they don't have their best day? And then how do you progress and regress, and the art form of that? And we have online courses, we have live courses. And I said, one of the best things we've done is a mentorship. We have coaches and clinicians from all over the world, where we not only teach them continually and educate them continually each week on our coaching calls, but we also hold them accountable, where they have to submit case studies and they have to show us that they're putting it into practice. And we've developed some unbelievable coaches and trainers who are doing some great things. And so that's probably something I'm super, super excited about. You can get all that information through my website. We also have a a thing that we created for people who want to find out more about our trainer development is we created an ebook. It's basically, we sat down, Mike and I, and said, okay, if I had 10 minutes with you and say, I could give you 10 tips, like how do you become one of the top 1% in this industry and do some of the things that we've done? Because Mike's done the same. He's worked with some of the top MMA fighters in the world. He owns a very successful facility in Boston. He also speaks internationally, as like I've done. And so we put it all in an ebook, which is soon going to be a workshop an online workshop you'll have access to. We'll take the ebook and bring it to life. And you can get that at toptrainerbook.com. And so you just go to toptrainerbook.com, you'll get the free ebook with those 10 tips. And then once the online workshop's ready to go, which will have a workbook that you'll go through as well, that'll be able to. So if you want to learn from our mistakes we have Mike and I 50 combined years of screwing it up. Yeah. We can save you a lot of trouble by just starting with these simple 10 tips.
Oh, that's awesome, Eric. Thanks for providing that for the audience and obviously for your business as well. That's really great resources. And thank you so much for being on the show today, taking your time out and sharing your journey with us. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on, and I love what you're doing here and getting more people to be heartfelt in their business and be in our industry more transformational and not transactional. And kudos to you. Thank you for the opportunity to be on with you.
You're very welcome. And thank you, listeners, and those watching on YouTube as well. We really do appreciate it. And make sure you're checking out everything that Eric is doing. And we're going to provide all those links down in the show notes so that it makes it very easy for you just to click and go and check out everything that he's doing. And also, while you're down there, if you could do me a favor and hit that little review button and give the show a rating and review, and that really helps spread the word about the Heart-Led Business Show and those that really need that advice to build on their passion and really have a great business. And until next time, lead with your heart.
You've been listening to the Heart-Led Business Show, hosted by Tom Jacobs. Join us next time for another inspiring journey into the heart of business.